Tonight, we are traveling to the darkest place on our planet, far below the surface of the ocean, past the point where sunlight fades. There is a world that has never known day or night. No sunrise, no seasons, just stillness, and cold, and pressure, and time. Scientists call it the midnight zone, the vast layer of ocean that begins where the last traces of sunlight disappear, around 1,000 meters down, and stretches all the way to the seafloor. It is the largest living space on Earth, larger than all the continents combined, and almost none of it has ever seen light. The creatures here are patient in ways we can barely imagine. Some drift for years between meals, others grow so slowly that a single lifetime might span centuries. Many are born into darkness, hunt in darkness, reproduce in darkness, and die without ever knowing that the surface world exists. Down here, energy is precious, and nothing is wasted. Pressure at these depths would collapse human lungs in moments. Temperatures hover near freezing, year after year, century after century. Food arrives slowly and unpredictably, sometimes after months of silence, forcing life to become efficient, unhurried, and radically different from anything shaped by sunlight. Some of these creatures may live for decades without ever encountering another of their own kind. And yet, life here is not struggling. It is not waiting to escape. The midnight zone is not a place life fled from. It is a place life was shaped by, slowly, over hundreds of millions of years. What if sunlight is the exception, not the rule for life on Earth? What if most of our planet's living space has always belonged to the dark? Tonight, we'll sink gently into that darkness. We'll meet the creatures who have never known the sun exists, and we'll listen to what the quiet has to teach us. Before we begin, if this space brings you peace, a like or subscribe helps other curious dreamers find their way here too. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? What time is it where you are? It's always lovely to see how far this quiet corner travels. Now, let your breath slow, let your body settle, and together, let's drift down into the midnight zone. The descent continues quietly, not as a fall, but as a thinning. What begins at the surface as open brightness slowly loosens its grip on the water below. Light does not vanish all at once, it weakens in stages, filtered and softened by the very substance it enters. Seawater is never empty. It holds salt, suspended minerals, drifting particles, and countless microscopic lives, each one nudging photons from their path. With every meter downward, fewer rays remain unchanged. Near the top, sunlight still feels whole. The water carries warmth, motion, and color that resembles the sky above. Yet even here, change has already begun. Red light, with its longer and gentler waves, fades first. It is absorbed quickly, surrendered to the water within the shallowest layers. Blood darkens, shells lose their warmth of color, and what once appeared vivid turns muted without any sense of nightfall. A little deeper, orange and yellow follow, thinning into pale suggestions before disappearing entirely. The sea does not dim evenly, it edits the spectrum piece by piece. As depth increases, green light lingers longer, scattered and bent, slipping sideways through the water rather than straight down. It gives the mid-depths their familiar cold glow, a color often mistaken for brightness, but already stripped of much information. Shadows soften here, not because light is abundant, but because it has lost direction. Objects blur into one another, edges dissolve. What remains is not darkness yet, but a narrowing world. Blue light endures the longest. Its shorter waves travel farther through water, resisting absorption more stubbornly than the rest. For a time, it becomes the final thread connecting the deep ocean to the sun above. This blue is thin and fragile, stretch to its limit. It no longer arrives as illumination, only as a faint presence, more suggestion than sight. Eventually, even this last color fades. The ocean does not announce its departure. There is no sudden change, no visible line drawn in the water. Light simply stops arriving. At a certain depth, sunlight is gone for good. Below this boundary, no natural ray from the surface ever reaches again. The water becomes permanently lightless, not because night has fallen, but because distance and physics have closed the door. This threshold exists across the world's oceans, regardless of latitude or season. Whether beneath tropical seas or polar ice, the same process unfolds. Water absorbs light according to its nature, not according to place. Gravity pulls the sea downward, chemistry shapes its clarity, and together they set a limit that sunlight cannot cross. This boundary remains remarkably consistent across Earth. Waves, storms, and seasons may churn the surface endlessly, but they do not change how light behaves once it enters the depths. The ocean acts as a filter that cannot be reset. Its structure is vast, layered, and stable, shaped by planetary forces far larger than weather or climate. As a result, the zone without sunlight is not an exception, it is a permanent feature of the planet. Below this depth, time feels different, not slower exactly, but steadier. Without sunlight, there are no visual cues for passing days or turning seasons. The water holds its temperature with quiet patience. Motion becomes rare, and when it happens, it travels slowly, as if reluctant to disturb the stillness. What lies beneath is not hidden by secrecy, but by scale. From the human perspective, this absence of light marks the edge of familiarity. Even the clearest surface waters represent only a thin skin over the planet's largest environment. The portion of the ocean that reflects the sky, that catches the sun and glitters, is a fraction of its total volume. Most of the seafloor lies far below the reach of natural light, shaped and reshaped without ever being seen. Human eyes, adapted to air and sunlight, are poorly suited to this realm. Without machines, the descent stops early. The pressure increases, the cold deepens, and the last traces of color vanish long before the ocean has truly begun. What remains below is not an empty void, but a vast continuity that has never required observation to exist. As the story drifts deeper, the presence of light is no longer something to lose. It is already gone. What remains is a world defined by absence, not as a lack, but as a condition that shapes everything that follows. Below the last reach of sunlight, the ocean does not fall into night. It enters something quieter and more enduring. Darkness here is not a daily event or a temporary condition. It is the constant background against which all life unfolds. There is no morning to arrive, no evening to soften the edges of the world. The water remains the same shade of black, hour after hour, generation after generation. In this place, the idea of a day simply never forms. Near the surface, life moves in patterns shaped by light. Bodies rise and rest in time with brightness. Growth, feeding, and reproduction often follow cycles tied to the turning of the planet. Even the smallest organisms carry traces of these rhythms, guided by internal clocks that have been tuned by sunrise and sunset for millions of years. But in the deep ocean, these signals never arrive. There is no light to set a schedule, no shadow to mark the passage of time. Without these cues, biological clocks loosen. Some fade almost entirely. Instead of being driven by light, life here responds to different signals. Hunger becomes a rhythm. The slow arrival of food drifting down from above sets its own pace. Chemical changes in the water, the faint movement of currents, and the rare encounter with another living body take the place of dawn and dusk. Time becomes something felt through scarcity and chance rather than measured by repetition. For many deep sea animals, activity is not divided into days and nights. There is no advantage in waiting for darkness because darkness never ends. Movement happens when energy allows. Feeding occurs when opportunity appears. Rest follows exhaustion rather than a setting sun. Life stretches outward, not in cycles, but in long, uneven intervals. The body adapts to this openness, learning to endure stillness for extended periods, then respond quickly when the moment arrives. Reproduction also shifts under these conditions. On the surface, many species rely on seasonal changes to coordinate breeding. Temperature, light, and food availability rise and fall together, creating predictable windows for life to begin. In the deep ocean, these signals are absent or muted beyond recognition. As a result, reproduction becomes slower and less synchronized. Some species reproduce rarely, spacing their efforts across long spans of time. Others rely on chemical traces or physical contact rather than timing, ensuring continuity in a world without shared schedules. As generations pass, the meaning of time itself changes. Longevity increases, not as a strategy, but as a consequence of slow living. Growth stretches across years rather than months. Aging follows a gentler slope. Without seasons to rush against, there is no urgency to mature quickly or reproduce often. Life unfolds at a pace set by physics and energy, not by the turning of the earth. Surface rhythms lose their relevance entirely. Concepts like spring and winter, day and night, become artifacts of another world. Even the biological language of circadian cycles begins to dissolve. Some deep sea organisms still carry remnants of these internal clocks, inherited from ancestors that once lived closer to the light. Over time, however, these mechanisms weaken or repurpose themselves, responding to internal chemistry instead of external brightness. The body learns to listen inward rather than outward. In this environment, stability replaces repetition. The water's temperature shifts only slightly across centuries. Currents move slowly, sometimes imperceptibly. Without dramatic change, there is little reason for life to anchor itself to precise timing. Flexibility becomes more valuable than punctuality. Survival depends on patience, restraint, and the ability to wait without cost. To human perception, this world can feel suspended, as though time has paused, yet life continues, steady and persistent, shaped by a rhythm that does not resemble our own. Events are not marked by clocks or calendars, but by rare moments of contact and nourishment. A meal may define a year, an encounter may define a lifetime. As the ocean deepens further, this way of living becomes the norm rather than the exception. The absence of day and night does not create confusion here. It creates a different order, one where time is not counted, but absorbed, where life drifts forward without ever needing to know what hour it is. As the descent continues, the water grows heavier in a way that cannot be seen. There is no sound to mark it, no visible line where the change becomes serious. Yet with every step downward, the ocean presses inward with increasing insistence. Pressure builds quietly, layer by layer, created by the simple weight of water stacked above itself. What begins as a gentle force near the surface becomes something vast and unyielding in the deep. Each meter adds more mass. Each column of water rests upon the one below it. Over great depths, this accumulation becomes enormous. The pressure does not rush or surge. It settles, constant and complete, pressing equally from every direction. There is no shelter from it, no direction in which to lean away. The ocean holds everything within it in a steady, inward grip. For the human body, this environment is impossible to endure. Our lungs rely on air-filled spaces, Our bones, tissues, and blood vessels evolved under a narrow range of pressure, balanced carefully against the atmosphere. In the deep ocean, that balance collapses. Air compresses, cavities shrink. Structures designed to flex gently are forced inward all at once. Without protective technology, the body cannot maintain its shape. Survival becomes a matter of moments, not endurance. Yet life persists here, not by resisting pressure, but by belonging to it. Deep sea organisms are not crushed because they are not built around empty spaces. Their bodies are filled with fluids that compress easily, matching the pressure of the surrounding water. There is no sharp difference between inside and outside. The ocean presses inward, and the body answers without strain. At the smallest scale, pressure reaches into cells themselves. Proteins, the folded molecules that carry out life's work, are sensitive to force. Under extreme pressure, their shapes can bend or unravel, losing their function. In surface life, this would mean failure and death. In the deep, evolution has reshaped these molecules to remain stable under compression. Their structures are reinforced, their movements slowed, their interactions adjusted to function in an environment that never relents. Cell membranes also change. The thin boundaries that hold cells together must remain flexible without becoming fragile. In high pressure, rigidity becomes a liability. Deep sea cells use different chemical compositions, allowing membranes to stay fluid and intact despite the constant squeeze. This quiet adaptation happens at a scale too small to see, yet it defines whether life can exist at all. These microscopic changes ripple outward into entire bodies. Deep sea animals often appear soft, even delicate, when brought to the surface. Their tissues lack the rigid supports common in shallow water species. Heavy bones and dense muscles are unnecessary here. Pressure already provides structure. Movement does not require strength in the familiar sense, because water supports weight and resists motion evenly. Energy is conserved by building less, not more. Muscles are lighter. Skeletons are reduced or absent. Many bodies take on rounded or elongated shapes that distribute force smoothly. Sharp edges and hollow chambers are avoided. Everything about these forms reflects a long negotiation with pressure, a gradual shaping guided by survival rather than speed. Blood chemistry shifts as well. Oxygen is scarce, and pressure affects how gases dissolve and move through tissues. Deep sea organisms adjust their internal transport systems accordingly, binding oxygen differently, circulating it slowly and efficiently. The body becomes a closed, careful system, tuned for stability rather than bursts of activity. What emerges from this environment is a kind of quiet resilience. Life does not fight the pressure, it yields to it, matching its presence until the force becomes neutral rather than threatening. Where humans require rigid protection to descend even briefly, these organisms live continuously, their bodies shaped by millions of years under the same conditions. As the ocean deepens further, pressure becomes not just a challenge, but a defining feature of existence. It shapes form, chemistry, and behavior in ways that surface life never encounters. In this realm, survival depends on harmony with the weight of the world above, a balance maintained without effort, held steady in the dark. As the deep ocean settles into its steady darkness and unyielding pressure, another challenge quietly takes precedence. It is not the absence of light that shapes life most strongly here. It is the absence of energy. In this world, survival is not defined by what can be seen or endured, but by what can be acquired, held, and carefully spent. Food does not grow in the deep. There are no plants drawing power directly from the sun, no steady fields of production renewing themselves each day. Nearly all usable energy begins far above in the bright surface waters that feel distant and unreachable now. From there, nourishment drifts downward slowly, carried by gravity and chance. Tiny particles of organic matter fall like a constant but faint snowfall, thinning as they descend, scattered by currents and consumed long before they reach the depths. By the time this rain arrives in the permanent darkness, very little remains. What does reach the seafloor arrives unpredictably, sometimes as fine dust, sometimes as larger fragments released by distant events. A dead fish sinking from above, a discarded shell, a pulse of nutrients from a bloom long finished. These moments are rare, separated by long stretches of near emptiness. Energy here is not abundant enough to support excess. It barely supports existence. Because of this, food becomes the central force guiding evolution. Every structure, behavior, and process is shaped by a single requirement: to gain more energy than is lost. Movement is costly. Growth is expensive. Even staying alive requires constant balance. In such conditions, inefficiency is not a minor flaw, it is a fatal one. Deep sea life adapts by becoming extraordinarily careful. Bodies are built to minimize demand. Muscles work slowly and only when needed. Many animals drift rather than swim, allowing water to carry them instead of pushing against it. When movement happens, it is deliberate, measured, and brief. There is no room for restless motion or constant activity. Metabolism follows the same principle. Chemical reactions inside cells proceed at a reduced pace. Heat is not wasted. Processes that rush in surface life unfold gently here, stretched across time. Energy is conserved, not through strength, but through restraint. The body learns to idle for long periods, maintaining itself at the lowest possible cost. Waste becomes especially dangerous in this environment. Any energy lost cannot be easily replaced. A missed opportunity to feed may not return for weeks, months, or longer. As a result, deep sea organisms extract as much value as possible from what they consume. Meals are digested thoroughly. Nutrients are absorbed slowly and stored efficiently. Fat reserves become precious banks rather than temporary supplies. Some animals have adapted to eat prey nearly as large as themselves, not out of aggression, but out of necessity. When food appears, the body must be ready to accept it fully, even if digestion takes days or weeks. Refusing a meal is not an option. The next chance may not come. Reproduction also reflects this economy. Producing offspring requires enormous energy, and in the deep, this cost must be justified carefully. Many species reproduce infrequently, investing heavily in a small number of young rather than scattering effort widely. Development may be slow, growth extended, and maturity delayed. The goal is not speed, but certainty. Even sensory systems are shaped by scarcity. Complex organs require constant energy to maintain. In an environment where calories are scarce, excess sensitivity can become a liability. Senses are tuned only to what provides direct survival benefit. Everything else fades away, not through loss, but through careful subtraction. This careful accounting creates a world that appears calm and still. Yet beneath this quiet lies constant calculation. Every action is weighed against its cost. Every adaptation reflects a long history of energy budgeting passed down through countless generations. The deep ocean becomes a place where life is not driven by abundance, but by patience. As the narrative drifts onward, energy remains the unseen currency underlying all that follows. Darkness and pressure set the stage, but scarcity writes the rules. In this vast, lightless realm, survival belongs not to the fastest or the strongest, but to those who have learned how little they truly need. As the problem of energy settles into the background of everything that lives in the deep, the bodies themselves begin to reveal their purpose. Here, form follows restraint. Nothing is built for excess, and nothing exists without reason. In a place where every movement carries a cost, the most successful bodies are not those that act often, but those that endure quietly. Movement, when it happens, is slow and deliberate. Many deep sea animals drift rather than swim, allowing currents to carry them across vast distances with no effort at all. When muscles engage, they do so gently, conserving strength rather than displaying it. There is no sudden darting through the water, no constant searching. Stillness becomes a strategy, a way to remain present without spending what cannot be easily replaced. This slowness extends into every part of life. Metabolism runs at a reduced pace, like a fire kept low to last through a long night. Chemical reactions inside the body unfold gradually, producing just enough energy to maintain essential functions. Heat is not generated wastefully. Nothing rushes. Time itself seems to stretch within these organisms, not as an experience, but as a biological reality. Low metabolism changes how bodies are built. Large, powerful muscles demand constant energy, even at rest. In the deep, such demand would be unsustainable. As a result, muscle mass is often reduced, replaced by softer tissues that require less upkeep. Strength gives way to efficiency. The water supports the body, easing the need for rigid structures or forceful motion. Some animals appear almost fragile, their forms gelatinous or loosely organized. Yet this softness is not weakness. It is a precise adjustment to an environment where resistance is constant and energy is rare. These bodies bend with the water rather than fighting it. They move when necessary and rest when they can, maintaining balance at the narrow edge between survival and exhaustion. Living on this edge requires careful control. Energy intake and energy use remain closely matched. There is little room for error. A burst of activity without reward can leave an organism depleted for weeks. A failure to rest when possible can be just as dangerous. As a result, behavior becomes conservative. Actions are chosen sparingly, guided by instinct, refined through countless generations. Growth follows the same pattern. Instead of rapid development, bodies expand slowly, adding mass only when energy allows. This gradual approach reduces risk. It avoids the sudden demands that fast growth would place on limited resources. Maturity arrives not at a fixed age, but when conditions have quietly supported it long enough. Even internal systems reflect this balance. Hearts beat steadily, not rapidly. Circulation moves nutrients and oxygen at a pace that matches the body's needs without excess. Organs are streamlined, performing only essential tasks. Anything unnecessary fades over time, trimmed away by the pressure of scarcity. What emerges from this design is a form of quiet persistence. These bodies are not built to conquer their environment, but to coexist with it. They do not chase abundance, because abundance does not exist here. Instead, they refine themselves to endure absence. To human eyes, accustomed to motion and activity, this world can seem empty or lifeless. In reality, it is full of presence that simply unfolds at a different pace. Life does not announce itself through movement or sound. It reveals itself through patience. As the story continues, these minimal bodies serve as a foundation for everything that follows. They are the result of deep time spent under unchanging conditions, shaped by darkness, pressure, and scarcity into forms that ask almost nothing of their surroundings. In this silent economy, survival belongs to those who have learned how to exist on very little and to do so without hurry. As bodies adapt to use almost nothing, feeding becomes an event rather than a routine. In the deep ocean, meals do not arrive on schedule. There is no steady supply, no reliable rhythm to depend on. Food appears irregularly, shaped by distant processes far above or by rare encounters in the dark. When nourishment finally arrives, it does so without warning, and life here has learned to respond without hesitation. For many deep sea creatures, the time between meals stretches long and uncertain. A drifting fragment from the surface, a carcass sinking slowly through the water, or a chance meeting with another living body may provide nourishment after weeks or months of absence. Between these moments, there is nothing to hunt in the usual sense. Energy is not searched for constantly, it is waited for. This uncertainty shapes behavior from the inside out. Animals cannot afford to be selective. When food appears, it must be taken. There is no knowing when the next opportunity will come, and refusing nourishment is not an act of caution, but of risk. As a result, feeding becomes decisive. Bodies respond quickly, even if the rest of life unfolds slowly. Some deep sea animals are able to swallow prey larger than themselves. Their jaws stretch, their stomachs expand, and tissues accommodate a sudden influx of mass. This ability is not about aggression or dominance. It is about readiness. When a large meal presents itself, the body must be capable of accepting it fully. Digestion may take days or longer, but the energy gained can sustain life through extended periods of scarcity. Preparing for starvation is not an occasional strategy, it is a constant condition. Many deep sea organisms carry internal reserves built carefully over time. Fat deposits, specialized tissues, and chemical stores act as quiet savings accounts. These reserves are not spent quickly. They are released gradually, supporting metabolism at its lowest level while the body waits. Energy storage is handled with precision. Excess calories are not burned off or converted into unnecessary activity. They are preserved. Some animals are able to survive months or even years without feeding again. During these long intervals, bodily processes slow further, movement becomes minimal, growth pauses, life holds itself steady, suspended between moments of intake. This approach requires trust and patience rather than action. Surface life often relies on frequent feeding to maintain energy balance. In contrast, deep sea life relies on endurance. The body becomes a vessel designed to hold time as much as nourishment. Each stored molecule carries the promise of continued existence through absence. Digestive systems reflect this rhythm. Food is broken down slowly and thoroughly. Nutrients are absorbed with care. Waste is minimized. Even digestion itself becomes an energy investment, managed so that the process does not cost more than it provides. Everything about eating is measured, from the moment prey is captured to the final use of its energy. Hunting strategies also reflect unpredictability. Instead of constant pursuit, many animals wait motionless, blending into the water or the seafloor. They rely on chance encounters rather than active search. Others use subtle cues, faint movements, or chemical traces to detect nearby life without expending energy on sight or speed. When contact occurs, the response is immediate and efficient. There is little drama in these moments. Feeding is quiet, often unseen, and quickly over. What follows is a return to stillness, to the long pause that defines most of life here. The body digests, stores, and settles back into waiting. As generations pass, this relationship with food becomes deeply ingrained. It shapes not only bodies, but expectations. Life here is built around uncertainty, yet it does not struggle against it. Instead, it accepts rarity as a constant and adapts accordingly. As the story drifts onward, feeding remains a central thread woven through every adaptation. Eating in the deep ocean is not about abundance or satisfaction. It is about preparedness, restraint, and the ability to endure long stretches of nothing, held together by the quiet memory of the last meal. As feeding fades back into long waiting, the forms that drift through the deep begin to feel unfamiliar. In the absence of light, pressure, and abundance, bodies are shaped by different priorities than those that rule the surface. What emerges can seem unreal, as if these animals belong to another planet rather than the same ocean. Yet every contour, every softness, follows a quiet logic written by the environment itself. Many deep-sea animals possess bodies that appear delicate, almost insubstantial. Their tissues lack the firmness associated with muscle and bone. Instead, they are soft, pliable, and yielding, bending easily with the surrounding water. This softness is not a sign of vulnerability. It is a direct response to the constant pressure that fills every space. Without the need to support weight against gravity, rigidity becomes unnecessary. Water carries the body from all sides, reducing the need for strength in the familiar sense. Gelatinous forms become especially common in this realm. These bodies are composed largely of water, arranged into structures that hold shape without heaviness. Jellyfish, comb jellies, and similar drifting animals use minimal material to create large, functional forms. By replacing dense tissue with water, they reduce the energy required to build and maintain their bodies. Movement becomes effortless, guided more by currents than by muscle. Reduced skeletons follow the same principle. Bones are costly to produce and maintain. They require minerals, energy, and constant repair. In the deep ocean, where resources are scarce and gravity exerts less influence, heavy skeletal frameworks offer little advantage. Many animals evolve lighter internal supports or abandon rigid skeletons entirely. Their bodies remain flexible, capable of absorbing pressure and motion without breaking. This reduction in structure also allows bodies to withstand sudden changes. When a large meal arrives or pressure shifts slightly, soft tissues can expand and contract without damage. There are no brittle components to fracture, no rigid joints to fail. Flexibility becomes a form of resilience. Strength, as understood on land or in shallow water, holds little value here. There are no long chases, no high-speed pursuits, no need to overpower prey through force alone. Water resists motion evenly, making rapid acceleration inefficient and costly. A powerful muscle would demand constant energy even when unused, a burden few deep-sea animals can afford. Instead of strength, efficiency rules. Bodies are designed to drift, hover, and wait. When action is required, it is brief and targeted. A sudden opening of a mouth, a slow extension of a limb, a subtle pulse of movement. These actions rely on precision rather than power. Energy is spent only when success is likely. The visual effect of these adaptations can be striking. Limbs may appear elongated or loosely attached. Bodies may stretch far beyond what seems practical. Transparent tissues reveal internal organs, not because of fragility, but because pigment and armor serve little purpose without light or predators that rely on sight. What looks strange to human eyes is simply what remains after unnecessary features have been stripped away. Over time, these forms become common because they work. Softness reduces energy cost. Gelatinous tissue allows size without weight. Reduced skeletons conserve resources. Every unreal appearance reflects a long process of subtraction, guided by scarcity and pressure rather than aesthetics. Even predators in this environment often share these traits. They do not rely on brute force, they rely on patience, timing, and the ability to capitalize on rare encounters. Their bodies reflect this strategy, built to wait far longer than they act. As the ocean deepens further, this visual strangeness becomes familiar. What once seemed alien reveals itself as deeply logical. These animals are not poorly designed. They are precisely shaped for a world where efficiency outweighs strength and softness outperforms solidity. The dreamlike quality of the deep sea is not a trick of darkness or distance. It is the natural outcome of life, adapting to conditions far removed from human experience. In this quiet realm, unreal forms are simply the most practical ones, drifting onward in a world that rewards restraint over force. As bodies soften and skeletons lighten, another sense begins to lose its authority. Vision, so central to life at the surface, becomes uncertain in permanent darkness. In a world where light never arrives, eyes no longer offer reliable information. What they provide is incomplete, expensive, and often unnecessary. Over time, evolution responds not with uniform loss, but with a wide range of outcomes, each shaped by how little light remains and how rarely it matters. In the upper reaches of the deep, where faint traces of blue once lingered, vision could still serve a limited purpose. But as the descent continued and sunlight vanished completely, sight lost its foundation. An eye without light is like a window sealed shut. It may remain physically present, but it no longer opens onto the world. In these depths, seeing becomes an unreliable way to understand surroundings that rarely change and rarely reveal themselves. Some animals respond by shrinking their eyes. Reduced eyes cost less energy to build and maintain. They demand fewer resources and place less strain on already limited energy budgets. Over generations, eyes become smaller, less complex, sometimes little more than faint impressions beneath the skin. They may still detect vague differences between darkness and deeper darkness, but they no longer form images in any meaningful way. Other species take a different path. In places where rare points of light still appear, such as faint glows from other organisms, eyes may grow larger instead of smaller. These oversized eyes are built to gather every available photon, stretching sensitivity to its limit. They do not see clearly. They detect presence. A distant flicker, a passing shadow against nothingness, a momentary signal in the dark. These eyes trade precision for awareness, accepting distortion in exchange for survival. And then there are those that abandon vision entirely. In many deep sea animals, eyes disappear over time, skin closes over empty sockets, nerves reroute themselves. What once served a purpose becomes an unnecessary cost. Blindness here is not a defect, it is an adjustment. By removing eyes, the body frees energy for more useful tasks, sensing pressure, detecting chemicals, or simply sustaining life during long stretches without food. Sight is an expensive sense. Eyes require complex tissues, constant maintenance, and steady streams of energy to process information. The brain must interpret signals, adjust focus, and remain alert to changes. In a place where energy is scarce and visual information is minimal, this cost outweighs the benefit. Over time, natural selection favors those who spend less on sight and more on survival. As vision fades, other senses quietly take its place. The body listens instead of looks. Subtle vibrations traveling through water carry information about movement. Chemical traces linger like invisible paths, revealing the presence of food. or other animals long after they have passed. Pressure changes whisper of nearby bodies. These signals do not require light, and they persist in ways vision cannot. Blindness also brings a kind of consistency. Without eyes, there is no difference between day and night, between shadow and absence. The environment becomes stable in perception as well as reality. This stability allows life to respond calmly rather than react constantly. There is less distraction, less noise in the sensory world. What remains is information that matters. In this way, blindness becomes an advantage. It simplifies the relationship between body and environment. It removes a sense that cannot function properly and replaces it with others better suited to darkness. Over time, this shift reshapes behavior, movement, and interaction. Animals no longer orient themselves visually. They drift, wait, and respond to contact rather than anticipation. The deep ocean does not punish the loss of sight, it rewards it. In a place where nothing can be seen clearly, letting go of vision becomes a form of clarity. Bodies become quieter. Minds, in their biological sense, become less burdened. Energy flows toward functions that offer certainty rather than illusion. As the descent continues, eyes fade from importance, joining color and light as surface traits left behind. What replaces them is not a lesser way of knowing, but a different one, tuned to a world where darkness is complete and permanent, and where survival depends on senses that do not require sight at all. As vision loosens its hold, the deep ocean does not become empty of information. Instead, it becomes rich in signals that do not rely on light. Life here does not navigate by images, it navigates by presence. The water itself becomes the messenger, carrying traces, vibrations, and subtle shifts that speak constantly to bodies tuned to listen. Smell rises in importance first. In water, chemicals travel far and linger long after their source has moved on. A single release of scent can stretch into a long, invisible thread, drifting and bending with slow currents. Deep sea animals read these trails with precision. They sense not only what is nearby, but what passed through hours or even days before: a trace of food, the presence of another body, the fading signature of decay. These chemical signals form a quiet map, layered and dynamic, always changing yet never truly gone. Unlike sight, which demands immediacy, smell allows patience. An animal can remain still while information arrives on its own. There is no need to chase light or search actively. The environment delivers clues gradually, and the body interprets them without movement. This approach fits perfectly with a world where energy must be conserved and action chosen carefully. Vibration becomes another essential sense. Water carries motion efficiently. Even the smallest movement sends ripples outward, spreading through the dark like a whisper. Specialized cells and delicate sensory structures detect these vibrations, translating them into awareness. A distant fin stroke, the slow descent of a falling object, the subtle pulse of another animal breathing nearby. These signals reveal activity without revealing form, allowing life to respond without seeing. Pressure detection deepens this awareness further. In a place where pressure already defines existence, tiny changes matter. The movement of water around a body creates shifts that sensitive tissues can feel. These sensations outline nearby shapes, not as images, but as disturbances in an otherwise steady field. An approaching organism alters the flow. A passing current bends around obstacles. The environment announces itself through touch rather than sight. Together, these senses create a different kind of perception. The world is not observed from a distance, it is felt directly. Information arrives through contact, proximity, and lingering traces. The boundary between body and environment softens. The water is no longer just a medium to move through, it becomes an extension of the sensory system itself. Sensing movement without seeing it requires a different relationship with time. Visual information is immediate and fleeting. Chemical and mechanical signals persist. They allow the past to remain present. An animal may follow a trail long after its source has disappeared, guided by gradients of scent and subtle changes in concentration. Direction emerges not from sight lines, but from density and flow. This way of sensing favors calm over urgency. There is no sudden visual alarm, no sharp contrast demanding instant reaction. Instead, awareness builds gradually. The body gathers information quietly, deciding when action is worth the cost. This slow accumulation fits naturally with the deep sea's long intervals and rare events. Even communication follows these rules. Signals are not shouted in flashes or colors. They are released gently into the water as chemicals or vibrations, meant to be received by those close enough to matter. Interaction becomes intimate by necessity. Encounters are rare, and when they happen, they are shaped by closeness rather than distance. Feeling the environment instead of viewing it reshapes behavior. Animals do not orient themselves toward landmarks or horizons. They position themselves within flows, gradients, and fields. Up and down lose importance. What matters is direction of movement, strength of signal, and change over time. As these senses take precedence, the deep ocean becomes legible in its own way. It is not empty or unknowable. It is simply written in a language humans do not naturally speak. Life here reads the water the way surface life reads light, drawing meaning from patterns invisible to eyes. The descent continues with this shift complete. Sight fades into irrelevance, replaced by a fuller conversation between body and environment. In the permanent darkness, life does not become blind. It becomes attentive, listening to a world that never needed to be seen to be understood. As senses shift away from sight and toward touch, scent, and vibration, light quietly returns in a different form, not from the sun and not from above, but from life itself. In the permanent darkness, some organisms begin to produce their own glow. This light does not push back the dark or fill space with visibility. It appears briefly, precisely, and with purpose. Bioluminescence emerges here not as decoration, but as adaptation. In a world without sunlight, light becomes a rare and powerful signal. It carries information instantly through water that would otherwise remain unreadable. For animals living in vast darkness, the ability to create light offers a way to interact without movement, sound, or touch. It allows communication across distance in a realm where distance usually erases connection. The biological creation of light relies on careful chemistry. Inside specialized cells, molecules interact in tightly controlled reactions. Energy stored in chemical bonds is released as a faint glow instead of heat. The process is efficient, designed to waste as little energy as possible. In some species, this light is produced directly by the animal's own cells. In others, it comes from symbiotic bacteria housed within the body, maintained like living lanterns, fed just enough to keep shining. These light-producing structures appear in many forms. Some line the underside of bodies, others concentrate in small organs, lenses, or patches of skin. The placement is never random. Each glow is shaped by how it will be used. A downward-facing light may soften a silhouette. A forward glow may draw attention. A sudden flash may startle or confuse. Light here is not meant to illuminate the world. It is meant to alter behavior. Because energy is scarce, Light is used sparingly. It is rarely constant. Instead, it flickers, pulses, or appears only when needed. Many animals can control the timing and intensity of their glow, turning it on and off like a careful signal. Some release light as clouds, shedding glowing material into the water to distract while they slip away. Others produce steady points that mimic prey, drawing curious organisms closer. In this environment, light functions as a tool. It replaces vision without restoring it. A glowing point does not reveal surroundings. It reveals intent. It signals presence. It manipulates attention. In a world where movement is slow and encounters are rare, even a brief flash can carry enormous influence. Bioluminescence also plays a role in concealment. Some animals produce light on their undersides that matches the faint glow filtering down from above or the occasional distant shimmer of other organisms. This technique softens shadows, erasing outlines when viewed from below. The body blends into the darkness not by hiding light, but by carefully matching it. In this way, light becomes camouflage rather than exposure. Communication follows similar rules. A brief pulse may signal readiness to mate. A patterned sequence may identify species. These signals are quiet and localized, meant only for those close enough to matter. There is no broadcasting here. Every use of light is deliberate, shaped by the cost of producing it. That cost is significant. Creating light requires energy that could otherwise support survival. Every glow represents a decision. To shine is to spend. Evolution balances this trade carefully. Bioluminescence persists only when its benefits outweigh its expense. When light leads to food, safety, or reproduction, it remains. When it does not, it fades from the lineage. As a result, glowing creatures are not the majority, but they are common enough to reshape the deep ocean's character. Darkness is no longer absolute. It is punctuated by brief moments of brilliance, scattered and unpredictable. These flashes do not brighten the world, they deepen it, adding layers of interaction without removing mystery. Over long stretches of time, light becomes woven into the fabric of deep sea life. It is not a return to the surface world, but a new language altogether. One spoken softly, briefly, and with care. As the descent continues, bioluminescence stands as a reminder that even in the absence of the sun, life finds ways to signal, to connect, and to shape its environment. Light here is not a comfort. It is a resource, measured and purposeful, glowing only when the moment is worth the cost. As bioluminescence settles into the fabric of deep ocean life, light begins to serve an unexpected purpose. It is not always used to reveal or attract. In some cases, it is used to erase. In the permanent darkness, survival often depends on remaining unseen, and light itself becomes a tool for disappearance. Above the deepest plains, faint glimmers sometimes filter down from distant sources. These are not beams or rays, but weak suggestions of brightness, scattered and softened by the water. To an observer below, even this minimal glow can create contrast. A solid body passing overhead may appear as a darker shape against a slightly lighter background. This outline, known only through its effect, can be enough to give away a presence. Some deep-sea animals respond by producing light on their undersides. This glow is carefully controlled, matched in intensity, and spread to the dim light above. When viewed from below, the animal's silhouette fades. The body no longer blocks light. Instead, it blends into it. The outline dissolves, and what should have been visible becomes part of the background. This process is known as counter-illumination, though it is better understood as quiet balance. The animal is not shining to be seen, it is shining to avoid being seen. The light does not announce presence, it cancels it. The result is a kind of invisibility, achieved not through darkness, but through carefully measured brightness. The precision required is remarkable. Too much light would reveal the body immediately. Too little would leave a shadow behind. Many animals adjust their glow moment by moment, responding to changes in depth, angle, and surrounding brightness. Specialized light organs spread illumination evenly, softening edges rather than creating points. The body becomes a moving gradient rather than a solid shape. In this way, light becomes camouflage without color. In a world where color has no meaning, contrast replaces hue. Survival depends on managing brightness rather than blending patterns. The familiar strategies of surface life, stripes, spots, and pigmentation give way to something quieter and more subtle. Hiding in plain darkness does not mean becoming invisible in the absolute sense. It means becoming unremarkable. The animal does not vanish, it simply stops standing out. Predators searching for shapes find none. Eyes scanning for movement register only uniform space. The water appears uninterrupted. This form of concealment reflects the deep ocean's priorities. Movement is slow. Encounters are rare. When they do occur, being noticed can be costly. Counter illumination reduces that risk without requiring armor, speed, or aggression. It allows bodies to pass through the water as if they were not there at all. Energy plays its familiar role here as well. Producing light requires resources, and counter illumination is used only when necessary. Some animals glow only when moving upward, where silhouettes matter most. Others adjust their brightness based on depth, turning the glow down as background light fades. The system is economical, tuned to provide protection without waste. This strategy also reveals something about the deep ocean itself. Darkness here is not uniform, it has texture, shaped by faint sources and distant flashes. Life responds not by ignoring this complexity, but by engaging with it precisely. Counter-illumination is a conversation with the environment, an ongoing adjustment that keeps body and background aligned. Over long stretches of time, this method of hiding becomes refined. Bodies evolve flatter profiles, smoother transitions, and light organs placed exactly where shadows would form. Every feature contributes to the same goal, remaining unnoticed in a place where attention is dangerous. What emerges is a form of camouflage that feels almost paradoxical. Light is used to conceal. Brightness protects rather than exposes. In the deep ocean, familiar rules are reversed, not through chaos, but through careful adaptation. As the story continues downward, this quiet erasure becomes one more way life survives without struggle. There is no chase, no clash, no sudden escape. There is only alignment with the surrounding darkness, a gentle adjustment that allows one body to pass through another's world without ever being detected. As light becomes something that can erase a body, it also becomes something that can draw another closer. In the deep ocean, where darkness is complete and encounters are rare, even the smallest glow can carry meaning. A single point of light can stand out against the black like a distant promise. For some animals, this attention becomes a tool. Attracting prey in total blackness requires patience and restraint. There is no sweeping illumination, no wide glow meant to brighten the surroundings. Instead, light appears as a suggestion, a small pulse, a gentle flicker, something just noticeable enough to invite curiosity. In a world where information is scarce, curiosity itself becomes a powerful force. Many deep-sea animals produce light in specific patterns that resemble familiar signals. Some mimic the glow of small drifting organisms, common enough to be recognized by instinct. Others release soft flashes that resemble the scattered light produced by movement in the water. These signals do not announce danger. They blend into the background language of the deep, offering a shape or rhythm that feels ordinary. False signals become a form of deception here. Light is not used to communicate truth, but possibility. A glow may suggest food where none exists. It may imply safety where there is risk. Prey drawn toward these signals move closer, guided by expectation rather than sight. The darkness hides what waits beyond the light. The precision involved is remarkable. Light is released only when conditions are right. Too much glow would reveal the hunter too soon. Too little would go unnoticed. Many animals can adjust brightness, timing, and pattern with fine control. A glow may pulse slowly, pause, then return, creating a rhythm that holds attention without alarm. Each movement is measured, designed to draw another body closer without revealing intent. Some predators carry light at the end of elongated appendages, extending the signal away from the body itself. This separation allows the glow to appear harmless, unconnected to any threat. As prey approaches the light, it moves closer to the hidden body waiting just beyond perception. The final moment is swift, often the first and last interaction between the two. Light can also be used to confuse rather than attract. Sudden flashes may disorient prey, disrupting their ability to sense movement or direction. A burst of brightness in total darkness overwhelms sensitive systems adapted to scarcity. For a brief moment, the environment becomes unreadable. In that moment, the advantage shifts. Yet light is not without risk. In the deep ocean, producing light is an act of exposure. A glow meant for one observer may be noticed by another. Predators higher in the water column or moving silently nearby may see the signal and follow it. Light can betray location as easily as it can invite contact. Because of this danger, bioluminescent lures are used sparingly. They are tools of opportunity rather than constant strategy. Animals that rely on them must balance reward against risk, choosing moments carefully. Many remain dark for long periods, waiting until hunger outweighs caution. Energy cost adds another layer of restraint. Creating light requires resources that are already limited. A wasted glow is more than a missed chance. It is lost energy that may not be replaced soon. Evolution favors those who use light efficiently, reserving it for situations where success is likely. This careful balance shapes behavior across generations. Patterns of light become refined, optimized for specific prey and specific conditions. What works remains. What fails fades away. Over time, the deep ocean becomes a place where light speaks quietly but clearly, each signal carrying intent shaped by long experience. In this realm, deception does not involve speed or force. It involves suggestion. A glow appears, holds attention, then disappears, leaving only the outcome behind. The darkness resumes its stillness, unchanged by the brief interaction that just occurred. As the story drifts onward, light remains a rare and powerful language, used to hide, to attract, to confuse. It reshapes interactions without ever challenging the darkness itself. In the deep ocean, light is never casual. Every glow matters, and every glow carries consequence. As light becomes a careful language rather than a constant presence, time itself begins to stretch. In the deep ocean, change arrives slowly, if it arrives at all. There are no seasons to mark the year, no storms to reshape the landscape, no cycles of warmth and cold to hurry life along. The environment holds steady, and life responds by doing the same. Many deep sea animals live remarkably long lives, not because longevity is pursued, but because nothing pushes them toward speed. Growth unfolds gradually, shaped by limited energy and constant conditions. Bodies add mass slowly, cell by cell, over years rather than months. Without abundant food or changing temperatures, there is little advantage in rushing development. Survival favors patience. Slow growth reduces risk. Each stage of life extends long enough to pass through difficult periods without the need for rapid transformation. Energy is spread evenly across time, preventing the spikes in demand that could prove fatal. A body that grows slowly remains stable, avoiding the stress that fast change would bring in an environment where recovery is uncertain. This gradual pace continues into reproduction. Many deep sea species delay maturity far longer than their surface counterparts. Reproductive systems develop slowly, reaching readiness only when the body has stored enough energy to support the effort. In a world where feeding opportunities are unpredictable, reproducing too early can threaten survival itself. When reproduction does occur, it is often infrequent. Some animals produce offspring only a few times over their entire lifespan. Others space reproductive events across long intervals, waiting for conditions that quietly favor success. Rather than flooding the environment with young, deep sea life invests carefully, prioritizing quality over quantity. Longevity emerges naturally from this pattern. With low metabolism, slow growth, and delayed reproduction, bodies age differently. Wear and tear accumulates more slowly. Cells divide less often. Damage repairs quietly over time. Life becomes less about racing forward and more about maintaining balance. The deep ocean rewards this approach because its conditions are stable. Temperatures remain near constant. Pressure does not fluctuate. Darkness persists without interruption. In such an environment, adaptability takes the form of endurance rather than flexibility. There is little need to respond quickly to sudden change because sudden change is rare. This stability allows lineages to persist with minimal alteration across long spans of time. Forms remain recognizable across millions of years, refined rather than reinvented. Evolution continues, but it moves gently, guided by subtle pressures rather than dramatic shifts. Life here is shaped by fine adjustments, not revolutions. Speed, so valuable in many surface ecosystems, offers little advantage in the deep. There is nothing to outrun, nothing to chase frequently, nothing to escape quickly. Movement is costly and opportunity rare. A fast life would burn out long before it could reproduce. Stability becomes the safer strategy. As a result, the deep ocean becomes home to some of the longest living animals on Earth. Their longevity is not marked by visible age or decline. It is measured in quiet persistence. They remain, holding their place in the water, year after year, while the surface world above changes beyond recognition. This way of living reshapes how time is experienced biologically. Life does not measure itself in short spans or frequent milestones. It unfolds across decades, sometimes longer, with few dramatic events. The passing of time is subtle, almost imperceptible, marked only by gradual growth and occasional reproduction. As the narrative drifts deeper into this world, longevity reveals itself as a natural outcome of restraint. In a place that rarely changes, life finds no reason to hurry. Stability becomes strength. Speed becomes unnecessary. The deep ocean continues, calm and consistent, and life continues with it, paced not by urgency, but by endurance. As life settles into long spans of time and slow rhythms, space itself begins to stretch. In the deep ocean, distance is not measured only in meters or miles, but in absence. Bodies are scattered thinly across a vast volume of water, suspended in darkness that offers no landmarks and no gathering places. Each organism occupies its own small pocket of existence, separated from others by long reaches of emptiness. Food scarcity plays a quiet role in this spacing. When nourishment arrives only occasionally, too many bodies in one place would exhaust what little is available. Over generations, life spreads out, thinning itself across the environment. Individuals drift or settle far apart, reducing competition and increasing the chance that a rare meal will last. The result is a living world that is enormous, yet sparsely inhabited. Movement does little to close these gaps. Most deep sea animals move slowly, conserving energy, allowing currents to decide direction and speed. There is no reason to travel far unless necessity demands it. Searching actively for others would cost more energy than it could return. Instead, life waits. Encounters happen by chance rather than pursuit. Because of this, meeting another living thing is uncommon. Days, months, or even years may pass without contact. An animal may drift through the dark surrounded by nothing but water, sensing no vibrations, no chemical traces, no pressure changes that suggest company. The environment is not hostile, but it is vast beyond instinctive expectation. When encounters do occur, they are often brief. Two bodies cross paths, exchange signals, perhaps feed or mate, then separate again, carried away by slow currents into different regions of darkness. There is no reason to remain together. Proximity does not offer safety here. It offers competition. Over time, this isolation shapes evolution itself. Species adapt to function independently, without reliance on frequent interaction. Communication becomes minimal. Social structures, so common in surface life, offer little advantage in the deep. Cooperation requires regular contact, and regular contact is rare. As a result, many deep sea animals are built to survive alone. They do not depend on group hunting or shared defense. Their behaviors assume solitude. Their bodies are self-sufficient systems, capable of enduring long periods without assistance or interaction. Isolation becomes not a hardship, but a baseline condition. Reproduction adapts accordingly. When potential partners are scarce, finding one becomes a significant challenge. Some species rely on chemical signals that drift through the water, announcing presence across distance. Others evolve extreme strategies to ensure that when an encounter happens, it is not wasted. Reproduction may occur immediately, without courtship or delay, because the opportunity may never return. This constant separation gives rise to what could be called biological loneliness, not loneliness as emotion, but as structure. Life unfolds without companionship as a default state. The absence of others is not noticed because it is normal. Bodies are tuned to operate without expectation of contact. In this way, the deep ocean differs sharply from most surface ecosystems. Forests, reefs, and plains are crowded with movement and sound. Life there is defined by interaction. In contrast, the deep sea is defined by distance. Presence is rare enough to be remarkable. Yet this solitude carries advantages. Disease spreads slowly when individuals are far apart. Competition remains limited. Resources, when they appear, are more likely to sustain a single body rather than being divided among many. Isolation becomes a stabilizing force. As generations pass, this pattern deepens. Lineages persist not through cooperation, but through quiet endurance. Each organism carries the full burden of survival alone, shaped by an environment that neither helps nor hinders through proximity. The deep ocean continues in this state of scattered life, vast and thinly populated. Bodies drift, settle, wait, and persist, often without ever encountering another of their kind. In this world, solitude is not a tragedy. It is a condition written into the structure of survival itself. As isolation stretches across the deep ocean, reproduction becomes one of the most delicate challenges life must solve. Encounters are rare, distances are vast, and time moves slowly. In this world, finding a mate is not an expectation. It is an unlikely event. Evolution responds not with subtle adjustments, but with extreme solutions, shaped by necessity rather than preference. For some species, the solution is permanence. When two individuals finally meet, separation becomes a risk too great to accept. Partners attach themselves together, sometimes for life. What begins as a brief encounter turns into a lasting union, bodies fused or connected so that distance can never intervene again. This attachment is not symbolic, it is functional. It ensures that reproduction remains possible, even if the surrounding world offers no second chance. In certain deep sea fish, this attachment becomes absolute. A much smaller partner bonds permanently to a larger one, sharing blood and nutrients. Over time, their bodies integrate until they function as a single biological system. The smaller partner loses independence, not as a sacrifice, but as a strategy. In exchange, reproduction becomes guaranteed. The cost of individuality is outweighed by the certainty of continuation. Other species take a different approach, reshaping reproduction itself to fit a world of rare meetings. Flexible reproductive biology becomes a tool. Some animals carry both reproductive roles within the same body, allowing them to reproduce regardless of which type of partner they encounter. Others can store reproductive material for long periods, preserving it until conditions allow fertilization. Time, once an obstacle, becomes a resource. This flexibility removes dependence on precise timing. In surface environments, reproduction often requires synchronized cycles and coordinated behavior. In the deep ocean, such coordination is unreliable. Instead, biology bends. Systems become adaptable, ready to respond whenever opportunity appears, whether that moment arrives tomorrow or years later. Producing offspring also changes under these constraints. Many deep-sea species produce very few young. Energy is too scarce to support large numbers, and encounters too rare to justify frequent reproduction. Each offspring represents a significant investment. Development is slow. Care is taken, not always through parental behavior, but through biological preparation. Offspring are equipped to survive long periods alone, just as their parents did. This focus on quality over quantity reflects the broader economy of the deep. Nothing is wasted. Every reproductive effort must matter. A failed attempt may not be repeated. As a result, strategies evolve to reduce uncertainty as much as possible. Attachment, storage, flexibility, and restraint all serve the same goal, ensuring that reproduction happens at least once. Ensuring reproduction becomes a priority that reshapes entire life histories. Bodies develop features that would seem extreme in any other environment. Behavior becomes singularly focused during rare encounters. When contact occurs, hesitation disappears. The moment is used fully because it may be the only one. These strategies may appear harsh or alien when viewed through a human lens, but they reflect a quiet realism. The deep ocean does not offer abundance or reassurance. It offers time, pressure, and darkness. Life responds by making reproduction as reliable as possible within those limits. Once reproduction is secured, life returns to its steady rhythm. Partners remain attached or drift apart depending on their strategy. Offspring enter a vast world where solitude is normal and patience essential. The cycle continues without spectacle, sustained by adaptations refined over long spans of time. As the narrative moves forward, these extreme solutions stand as reminders of how deeply environment shapes biology. In a world where meeting another living being is rare, life does not rely on chance alone. It builds certainty where it can, even if that certainty requires forms and behaviors found nowhere else. The deep ocean remains quiet and spacious, and within it, life persists, connected not by crowds or constant interaction, but by strategies that ensure continuation against all odds. As reproduction finds its solutions and life continues to persist across vast distances, bodies themselves begin to diverge in unexpected ways. In the deep ocean, size no longer follows familiar patterns. Some species grow far larger than their shallow water relatives, stretching into immense forms that drift slowly through the dark. Others shrink to delicate miniatures, barely more than outlines of life. There is no single direction. There is only what works. Enormous size emerges quietly in certain lineages, not as an expression of dominance, but as a response to scarcity and time. In a world where meals are rare, being large offers advantages. A bigger body can store more energy. Fat, water, and nutrients accumulate over long periods, allowing survival through extended famine. Size becomes a reservoir, a living archive of past success. Large bodies also lose heat more slowly and resist minor environmental changes. In the stable cold of the deep ocean, this thermal inertia supports long lives and slow metabolisms. Movement becomes infrequent, deliberate, and economical. Giants do not need to chase food often. They wait, enduring absence until opportunity arrives. Growth towards such size happens gradually. It is not fueled by abundance, but by patience. Years pass between meaningful increases. Energy is converted into mass only when surplus allows. Over time, the body expands not to move faster or fight harder, but to endure longer. At the same time, other species move in the opposite direction. Miniaturization becomes an equally successful strategy. Smaller bodies require less energy to maintain. They need fewer resources, consume less oxygen, and can survive on smaller, more frequent scraps of nourishment. In an environment where energy arrives unpredictably, reducing demand can be just as effective as increasing storage. Small size also allows life to exploit spaces larger organisms cannot. Tiny bodies drift unnoticed, settle into narrow crevices, and respond quickly when food appears nearby. Their metabolisms may remain low, but their needs are lower still. Survival becomes a matter of fitting into the smallest margins. These two paths exist side by side because the deep ocean does not reward moderation. There is no advantage to being average. Energy economics drive bodies toward extremes. Either a species gathers enough energy to support size and storage, or it trims itself down to survive on almost nothing. Middle ground offers few benefits when conditions remain constant and resources limited. The balance between size and energy shapes every aspect of biology. Large species invest in longevity, slow growth, and infrequent reproduction. Small species often reproduce more readily when conditions allow, though still with restraint. Both strategies succeed because they align with the same constraints: scarcity, stability, and time. Importantly, neither size is inherently superior. A giant may survive decades without feeding, but it requires rare, substantial meals. A miniature may survive on fragments, but it must encounter them more often. Each body reflects a different negotiation with the same environment. In the darkness, there is no visual scale to anchor perception. Without light or reference points, size loses its meaning. A small organism drifting close may feel vast. A giant passing at a distance may seem unreal. Life does not experience itself as large or small. It experiences itself as sufficient or insufficient. Over generations, this freedom from scale allows diversity to flourish. Forms expand and contract without constraint from surface rules. Gravity matters less, speed matters less. What matters is balance between intake and expenditure. Energy shapes size, and size reshapes energy use in return. As the deep ocean continues, it becomes clear that there is no normal here, no standard body plan, no expected proportion. Darkness removes the familiar frameworks that define life above. In their absence, biology explores extremes calmly, guided only by what survives. Giants drift slowly through the water, holding years of nourishment within their bodies. Miniatures persist quietly, making do with almost nothing. Between them lies a spectrum shaped by scarcity and patience rather than competition. The dream of the deep carries on, filled with bodies that defy expectation not because they are strange, but because the rules that shaped them are different. In permanent darkness, scale becomes flexible, and life finds its balance wherever it can. As bodies grow large or small according to energy and patience, the setting that holds them remains almost perfectly still. The deep ocean exists beyond the reach of storms. Waves break far above, their motion fading long before it reaches these depths. Wind never stirs this water, rain never falls here. The surface world moves through cycles of chaos and calm, but below, the environment holds its shape. There are no seasons in the deep, no warming summers or cooling winters. Temperature changes only slightly across immense spans of time, hovering near the same cold year after year. Darkness does not lengthen or retreat, it simply remains. In this constancy, the ocean becomes less like a place and more like a condition, steady and unchanging. The seafloor itself reflects this stability. Vast plains of sediment accumulate slowly, grain by grain, settling into layers that record time not in years, but in millions of them. Mountains rise and erode far above, continents drift and collide, ice ages come and go, yet the deep ocean floor often remains untouched by these events. Movement exists, but it is subtle and slow, measured on geological scales rather than human ones. This stability shapes life profoundly. When environments change rapidly, evolution favors flexibility and speed. When environments remain constant, evolution favors refinement. In the deep ocean, there is little pressure to adapt quickly. Conditions that work today will likely work far into the future. As a result, change unfolds gently, guided by small adjustments rather than dramatic shifts. Evolution here becomes a quiet process. Traits are fine-tuned rather than replaced. Bodies slowly optimize efficiency, reducing waste, conserving energy, and maintaining balance. There is no rush to reinvent form or behavior. Survival depends on persistence, not innovation. This slow pace means that some deep-sea lineages remain recognizable across vast stretches of time. Fossil records show forms that differ only slightly from their ancient relatives, separated by millions of years, yet sharing the same essential design. This is not stagnation, it is success. When a form works well under constant conditions, there is little reason to change it. The absence of frequent disturbance also means fewer resets. On land and in shallow seas, storms, temperature swings, and ecological upheavals regularly clear space for new life to emerge. In the deep ocean, such clearing is rare. Established organisms persist, and new ones must find ways to fit quietly alongside them. Yet change does arrive eventually. It comes from above, carried downward by forces beyond the deep's control. Shifts in surface productivity alter the flow of food. Major geological events reshape ocean circulation. Mass extinctions ripple downward, thinning populations that once seemed insulated from the surface world. When these changes occur, they are disruptive precisely because they are rare. Deep sea life is built for stability, not rapid adjustment. Responses unfold slowly. Populations decline or adapt over long periods rather than sudden bursts. Some species disappear, unable to cope with altered conditions. Others endure, drawing on their patience and efficiency to outlast the disturbance. Even then, the deep ocean absorbs change quietly. There are no visible scars, no immediate signs of upheaval. The environment settles back into stillness, and life continues, reshaped but unhurried. Evolution resumes its gentle pace, refining what remains. This balance between constancy and rare disruption defines the deep ocean's character. It is not frozen in time, but it moves so slowly that change feels almost absent. Life adapts not by anticipating novelty, but by mastering endurance. As the narrative drifts onward, this unchanging world provides the backdrop for everything that follows. It explains the patience of bodies, the rarity of encounters, the careful use of energy. In a place where storms never arrive and seasons never turn, life learns to wait, knowing that time itself is its most reliable companion. The deep ocean remains, steady and dark, holding its inhabitants in a quiet continuity that spans ages. And when change finally comes, it does so gently, folded into the long, slow rhythm of a world that almost never changes. Even in a world that almost never changes, the deep ocean is not entirely sealed off from the surface above. What happens in the sunlit layers eventually reaches the darkness, though it arrives softened, delayed, and transformed. Disasters that unfold quickly at the surface travel downward slowly, carried not by shock, but by absence. When mass extinctions strike the surface world, they often begin with violence. Climate shifts, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, or widespread ecological collapse can erase familiar ecosystems in a short span of time. On land and in shallow seas, life responds immediately. Species vanish, food webs unravel, and the environment reshapes itself in visible ways. In the deep ocean, the response is quieter and slower, but no less real. The first signal is not destruction, but hunger. As surface ecosystems collapse, the production of organic matter declines. Fewer microscopic plants grow in sunlit waters. Fewer animals feed on them. Less material drifts downward. The steady snowfall of nourishment that once sustained the deep thins and weakens. What had already been scarce becomes even rarer. This loss does not arrive all at once. It takes time for reduced productivity above to be felt below. Weeks turn into months, months into years. The deep ocean continues, as it always has, unaware at first that anything has changed. But gradually, the intervals between meals lengthen, carcasses become rarer, fine particles grow fewer. Life begins to draw more heavily on stored reserves. These ripples of scarcity move downward through the food web. Predators encounter prey less often. Scavengers wait longer between opportunities. Organisms that once survived comfortably at the edge of energy balance are pushed closer to its limit. For some, endurance is enough. For others, it is not. Yet many deep sea species survive global catastrophes that devastate the surface. Their survival rests on several quiet advantages. Low metabolism allows them to endure long periods without food. Slow growth and long lifespans reduce the need for frequent reproduction. Bodies adapted to scarcity are already prepared for lean times. Darkness itself provides insulation. Without reliance on sunlight, deep sea life is not directly affected by changes in temperature or light above. Heat waves, cold snaps, and shifting seasons lose their power before reaching these depths. While surface life struggles to adapt to rapid change, the deep remains thermally stable, buffered by vast volumes of water. Distance also protects. Many surface disasters involve physical disruption, storms, waves, or habitat destruction. These forces fade long before they reach the deep seafloor. The environment remains physically intact, even as its food supply dwindles. There is no sudden collapse of shelter or structure, only a gradual tightening of resources. This does not mean the deep ocean is immune. Some species do disappear, especially those with narrow energy margins or specialized feeding strategies. Extinction happens quietly, without visible signs. A lineage fades away not through catastrophe, but through failure to replace itself. Others persist by retreating further into patience. Reproduction slows, growth pauses, activity decreases, life contracts inward, conserving what remains. Over time, populations thin but stabilize, waiting for conditions above to improve. When surface ecosystems recover, the deep responds again with delay. Increased productivity sends more organic matter downward. The snowfall of food thickens. Slowly, life expands back into the available space. New lineages may appear, shaped by the survivors of the previous scarcity. The deep ocean absorbs change not by resisting it, but by stretching its response across time. This pattern has repeated itself many times across Earth's history. The deep ocean acts as a reservoir of continuity, carrying life through periods of upheaval that reshape the surface again and again. Darkness, distance, and stability work together as shields, softening the impact of events that would otherwise erase entire worlds. As the story continues, this quiet resilience becomes clearer. The deep is not separate from the rest of Earth. It is connected by slow currents, falling particles, and the long memory of time. Surface disasters do reach the depths, but they arrive transformed, filtered through patience. In this way, the deep ocean remains both vulnerable and enduring. It feels the planet's wounds, but it heals on its own schedule. Beneath the chaos of the surface, life continues in the dark, carrying forward a version of Earth that has learned how to survive when everything above it falls apart. After ages of quiet continuity, a new presence enters the deep. It arrives late, tentative, and incomplete. Humans reach permanent darkness not through adaptation, but through technology, stepping briefly into a world that never made room for us. Our arrival here is recent in every meaningful sense. For most of human history, the deep ocean remained untouched, not hidden by secrecy, but by impossibility. Breath fails, pressure overwhelms. Cold drains warmth, darkness removes orientation. Only within the last few generations did tools become capable of carrying fragile human bodies downward, sealed inside metal shells that mimic, for a short time, the conditions life here accepts naturally. Submersibles descend slowly, surrounded by thick walls and humming systems. Inside, air is regulated, temperature controlled, pressure resisted rather than embraced. Lights pierce the darkness, harsh and narrow, revealing only what falls directly in their beam. Outside that circle, the deep remains unchanged, waiting. Robotic explorers soon follow, extending reach without risk to human life. These machines drift and crawl, equipped with cameras, sensors, and mechanical arms. They do not tire or panic, but they also do not belong. Their movements are deliberate and constrained, shaped by cables, batteries, and limited time. Every descent is planned. Every action is measured. When power runs low, they must return. Through these tools, humans glimpse a world that has existed without observation for millions of years. Creatures pass through artificial light briefly, then vanish again. The seafloor reveals tracks, burrows, and signs of life that suggest constant presence without spectacle. What is seen feels partial, not because the world is secretive, but because observation itself is limited. Our presence in permanent darkness is brief by necessity. We cannot remain. Even the most advanced vessels can stay only hours or days before turning back. Supplies run out, systems degrade, pressure tests every joint and seal. There is no margin for error. Unlike deep sea life, humans cannot settle, feed, or reproduce here. We visit, then leave. This artificiality defines every interaction. Lights alter behavior. Noise carries farther than intended. The simple act of observation changes what is observed. Life that evolved under stillness responds to intrusion cautiously or not at all. Some creatures retreat, others drift closer, drawn by unfamiliar stimuli. Either way, what is recorded is a moment shaped by presence rather than a natural state. Exploration also faces physical limits. Most of the deep ocean remains unseen even today. The distances are vast, the terrain is complex, trenches descend farther than many machines can reach. Planes stretch beyond the range of cameras. Even when vehicles descend successfully, they sample only narrow paths through an immense volume. What is known comes from fragments. Time imposes another boundary. Long-term observation is rare. Machines visit briefly, then depart. They do not stay long enough to witness slow processes unfolding. Growth, reproduction, migration, and interaction often occur beyond the window of observation. Life here moves at a pace that resists short visits. As a result, human understanding remains incomplete. We catalog species, map terrain, measure conditions, yet much remains inferred rather than witnessed. Many organisms are known from a single encounter. Others are identified only through traces, genetic fragments, or indirect signs of presence. The deep ocean does not yield easily to study because it does not operate on human timescales. Despite these limits, each descent adds to a growing awareness. The deep is no longer an abstract void. It is a living system, continuous and resilient, shaped by rules different from those that govern the surface. Human technology allows brief contact, but not participation. As the story continues, this contrast becomes clear. The deep ocean does not wait for us. It does not respond to curiosity or reward persistence with access. It exists on its own terms, allowing only glimpses through narrow windows. Human arrival marks a moment, not a transformation. The darkness remains. Life continues as it always has. Our machines rise back toward the light, carrying images and data, while below, the deep settles again into its steady quiet, unchanged by the brief touch of observation. As human presence withdraws back toward the light, a quiet tension lingers. Even brief glimpses of the deep ocean often leave a lasting impression. The images feel unsettling, not because they show violence or chaos, but because they touch something older and less defined. The discomfort does not come from the creatures themselves. It comes from the way this world collides with how humans are built to perceive reality. From an evolutionary perspective, darkness has always carried risk. For most of human history, survival depended on seeing threats before they arrived. Vision became our dominant sense, shaping how we move, communicate, and feel secure. Environments that removed light also removed certainty. In those places, danger could approach unseen, and escape required guesswork rather than knowledge. Over time, the absence of light became associated with vulnerability rather than rest. The deep ocean magnifies this absence beyond anything humans evolved to handle. It is not a night that ends with sunrise, nor a cave that opens back into daylight. It is darkness without boundary. When humans encounter it, even through a screen, the mind struggles to orient itself. There are no familiar distances, no clear sense of scale, no ground or sky to separate up from down. The visual anchors that usually stabilize perception simply do not exist. This creates a sensory mismatch. Human senses evolve to work together in predictable ways. Sight confirms what hearing suggests. Touch aligns with balance. In deep sea footage, these systems fall out of sync. The camera drifts silently. Objects appear suddenly from the black, then dissolve again. Movement lacks reference points, making it difficult to judge speed or direction. The brain searches for context and finds none. Sound, when present, feels disconnected. Mechanical hums replace natural cues. Light behaves strangely, illuminating only narrow slices of space while leaving everything else untouched. The result is an environment that feels incomplete, as though important information is missing. The mind fills that absence with unease. Deep sea footage often amplifies this effect. Cameras compress vast distances into a small frame. Powerful lights flatten depth, making large animals appear close and small ones appear suspended without scale. Creatures adapted to darkness reflect light in unexpected ways. Transparent bodies, elongated forms, and slow movements defy surface expectations. Nothing behaves as it should, at least not according to the rules humans carry with them. The unsettling quality does not come from aggression. Many deep-sea animals move gently, even gracefully. It comes from unfamiliarity layered onto isolation. The footage suggests a world that does not acknowledge the observer. Creatures pass through the frame without reacting, or they pause briefly before drifting away. There is no engagement, no shared space. The human viewer feels present, yet irrelevant. This taps into the psychology of unseen spaces. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with environments that cannot be fully surveyed. Darkness hides edges. It removes the ability to scan and assess. In such spaces, imagination becomes active, not as creativity, but as a search for missing information. The mind anticipates threats, not because they are present, but because they cannot be ruled out. The deep ocean embodies this perfectly. It is vast beyond comprehension, sparsely populated, and largely unobserved. Footage shows only fragments, reinforcing the sense that most of the world remains just out of view. What lies beyond the frame feels more important than what is shown. At the same time, this discomfort is paired with fascination. The deep ocean represents a place where human assumptions do not apply. It reveals how narrow our sensory experience truly is. Life thrives here without light, without frequent contact, without urgency. The unsettling feeling is not a warning, it is a reminder of difference. As the story continues, this reaction becomes part of the narrative itself. The deep ocean feels strange not because it is hostile, but because it operates outside human expectations. Our fear is not a reflection of danger, it is a reflection of unfamiliar rules. In the darkness below, life continues calmly, indifferent to human discomfort. The world does not attempt to reassure or explain itself. It simply exists, steady and quiet, inviting observation without offering comfort. And in that silence, the unsettling feeling remains, not as a threat, but as evidence that Earth is larger, deeper, and stranger than the senses we rely on. As the unease of unfamiliar darkness softens into understanding, another truth becomes clear. Life in the deep ocean is not merely adapted to the absence of sunlight. In many ways, it no longer depends on the sun at all. Beneath the bright surface world, a quieter system operates alongside it, steady and self-contained, shaped by forces that do not rise or set. On the surface, life moves in step with the sun. Days and nights regulate activity, seasons guide growth and rest. Photosynthesis anchors nearly every food web, capturing light and turning it into energy that spreads outward through ecosystems. In the deep ocean, this foundation fades away. Sunlight never arrives, and yet life continues, structured around different rules. Independence from surface cycles defines this world. Without dawn or dusk, there is no daily reset. Without seasons, there is no annual rhythm. Temperature remains nearly constant. Darkness holds steady. Life does not wait for favorable times, because time itself offers little variation. What matters instead is chemistry, pressure, and the slow movement of water and nutrients. Deep sea ecosystems do not rely directly on photosynthesis. Instead of drawing energy from light, they depend on chemical reactions and recycled matter. Some communities form around places where the earth itself releases energy, such as cracks in the seafloor where minerals and gases seep upward. Here, specialized organisms convert chemical compounds into usable energy, forming the base of entire ecosystems without a single photon involved. Elsewhere, life feeds on what drifts down from above, not as fresh growth, but as remnants. Dead organisms, discarded material, and microscopic particles sink slowly through the water column. By the time they arrive, they are transformed, stripped of immediacy, yet still valuable. The deep ocean does not create energy quickly, it recycles patiently. This creates a parallel biosphere beneath the surface, one that overlaps with surface life but does not mirror it. The two systems are connected, yet independent. Changes above influence the deep, but they do not dictate it. When surface productivity rises or falls, the deep responds slowly, buffered by distance and time. Its rhythms are longer, its reactions gentler. In this layered structure, Earth operates on multiple levels at once. The surface is dynamic, bright, and fast. Weather shifts daily. Ecosystems rise and fall quickly. Below, the deep ocean remains calm and enduring, shaped by geological time rather than immediate change. Both worlds are alive, both are essential, yet they function according to entirely different principles. Life in permanent darkness demonstrates that sunlight is not the sole engine of biology. It shows that energy can come from many sources, and that life can organize itself around stability instead of abundance. The deep ocean is not a shadow of the surface world, it is its own domain, complete and sufficient. This independence carries profound implications. It means that even when surface environments struggle, life below may persist. It means that Earth's habitability is broader than it appears from land. The planet does not rely on a single system to remain alive. It has built redundancy into its very structure. As the narrative continues, this realization settles quietly. The deep ocean is not an extension of the surface. It is a companion layer, operating in parallel, shaped by darkness, pressure, and patience. Together, these layers form a planet that functions simultaneously in light and in absence. Earth does not live on one schedule or one scale. It breathes at many depths, each with its own pace and rules. Beneath the sunlit skin we know so well, another world persists, calm and continuous, proving that life does not need light to endure. As the deep ocean reveals a biosphere that functions without sunlight, familiar ideas about habitability begin to loosen. For much of human history, livable environments were defined by resemblance: air that can be breathed, temperatures that feel comfortable, light that allows sight, water that moves gently. These conditions shaped where humans could survive, and over time, they shaped how we imagined life itself. Yet, beneath the surface, a different picture unfolds. Life persists where air cannot exist, where pressure would crush unprotected bodies, where darkness is permanent, and where food arrives unpredictably. These environments are not marginal or temporary. They are vast, ancient, and stable. They host ecosystems that are complete, enduring, and finely balanced. Expanding the definition of what is livable means stepping away from human comfort as the measuring stick. In the deep ocean, habitability is not about ease, it is about consistency. Temperature remains steady. Chemistry stays within narrow bounds. Pressure does not fluctuate. These conditions, though extreme to humans, provide reliability to organisms shaped for them. What feels hostile to one form of life becomes supportive to another. This shift carries important lessons about extreme survival. Life does not require abundance. It does not require variety. It does not even require light. What it requires is energy, stability, and time. Given these, biology adapts patiently, reshaping bodies, behaviors, and systems until survival becomes routine rather than remarkable. The deep ocean teaches that limits are relative. Scarcity becomes manageable when metabolism slows. Isolation becomes normal when encounters are rare. Darkness becomes irrelevant when senses adapt away from vision. Each constraint invites a response rather than a retreat. Over generations, those responses accumulate into thriving ecosystems that feel strange only because they do not resemble the surface world. This realization also reframes Earth itself. The planet we think we know is largely unseen. The sunlit surface, where humans live and history unfolds, represents a thin layer atop a much larger living system. Most of Earth's habitable space exists beyond direct human experience, operating under rules that feel unfamiliar, even alien. In this sense, Earth is more alien than we assume, not because it harbors unknown monsters, but because it contains environments that defy our intuitive understanding of life. The deep ocean is not an exception, it is the majority. Its conditions dominate the planet's volume, and its inhabitants outnumber those of the surface in sheer space occupied. Recognizing this changes how we think about life as a planetary phenomenon. It becomes clear that Earth does not support life in a single way. It supports life across layers, each with distinct rules, tempos, and solutions. These layers interact, but they do not depend on uniformity. Diversity arises not only in form, but in fundamental strategy. The implications of this understanding extend beyond Earth without requiring speculation. By studying how life persists under pressure, darkness, and scarcity here, scientists gain insight into the flexibility of biology itself. These insights inform how instruments are designed, how samples are interpreted, and how environments are evaluated, all grounded in observation rather than imagination. It also encourages humility. If Earth can host thriving ecosystems that remain largely invisible to us, then our perspective is necessarily incomplete. What we call extreme may simply be unfamiliar. What we call inhospitable may be perfectly suited to life shaped by different constraints. As the story continues, this broader view settles gently into place. Habitability is no longer a narrow band defined by human needs. It becomes a spectrum shaped by physics, chemistry, and time. Earth demonstrates this quietly, layer by layer, without announcement. The deep ocean does not ask to be understood on human terms. It simply exists, alive and persistent, expanding the boundaries of what life can be. In doing so, it reminds us that our planet is not only a home, but a complex, multi layered system where life finds a way not by matching our expectations, but by exceeding them. As the deep ocean reveals how life can persist without light or speed, another truth comes quietly into focus. This slow world, shaped by patience and stability, is also fragile. Its strength lies in endurance, not resilience to sudden change. What endures for millions of years can still be altered quickly, and recovery here follows the same slow rhythm as everything else. For a long time, the deep ocean seemed distant enough to remain untouched. Out of sight felt out of reach, yet materials released at the surface do not stay where they begin. They sink, dissolve, and travel with currents that move far beyond human awareness. Tiny fragments of plastic drift downward, chemical pollutants bind to organic particles and fall like a poisoned snowfall. Even substances released far from shore eventually find their way into permanent darkness. When these materials arrive, they do not disperse quickly. The deep ocean lacks the turbulence that mixes and dilutes contamination at the surface. Instead, pollutants settle into sediments or are absorbed by organisms that cannot easily eliminate them. Over time, these substances accumulate, concentrating slowly but persistently within bodies adapted for scarcity rather than detoxification. Noise reaches the deep as well. Sound travels efficiently through water, far better than through air. Engines, drilling, and sonar send vibrations downward that penetrate darkness without resistance. To life that senses the world through pressure and vibration, this noise becomes a constant intrusion. It does not arrive as a sudden shock, but as an ongoing disturbance layered onto an environment that evolved in near silence. Mining introduces a different kind of disruption. The seafloor holds minerals formed over immense spans of time. Extracting them requires machines that scrape, cut, and stir sediments that may not have been disturbed for millions of years. This activity reshapes habitats that took ages to form, flattening complex surfaces into uniform fields. The fine particles released can drift for long distances, settling over living communities and altering chemistry far beyond the original site. What makes these impacts especially serious is the pace of recovery. In the deep ocean, nothing returns quickly. Growth is slow, reproduction is rare. Colonization of disturbed areas may take decades, centuries, or longer. Some organisms may never return at all, not because the environment remains hostile, but because the pathways that once led them there no longer exist. Sediments accumulate at a pace measured in millimeters over centuries. Coral like structures and sponge communities may take hundreds of years to form. When they are damaged, the loss is not temporary. It represents the erasure of time itself, compressed into a single moment of disturbance. Unlike surface ecosystems, the deep cannot rely on rapid replacement. There are no fast growing plants to stabilize damage, no seasonal blooms to refill gaps. Recovery unfolds quietly, if it unfolds at all. The absence of visible collapse does not mean the absence of harm. Change here is subtle, and so is loss. This fragility is not weakness. It is the natural outcome of a world optimized for constancy. Deep sea life trades adaptability for efficiency. It survives by assuming tomorrow will resemble today. When that assumption fails, the cost is high. Damage can linger long after its cause is gone. Pollutants remain embedded in sediments. Noise alters behavior for extended periods. Disturbed habitats stay altered across generations. The deep ocean does not forget easily because it was never built to. As the story continues, this understanding adds weight to everything that came before. The patience of deep sea life, its slow growth and long memory, becomes both its strength and its vulnerability. What takes millions of years to shape can be changed in moments and restored only over spans that exceed human history. The deep ocean remains calm, dark, and vast. Its creatures continue their quiet lives, largely unaware of distant decisions made far above. Yet the traces of those decisions drift downward all the same, settling into a world that will carry them for centuries. In this slow world, care matters more than urgency, because once change arrives here, it does not leave quickly. It becomes part of the deep, woven into a living system that remembers far longer than we do. As the deep ocean reveals both endurance and fragility, a broader perspective begins to settle into place. Darkness is not an exception on Earth. It is the rule. Light, so familiar and central to human experience, occupies only a thin boundary layer of the planet. Everything below it tells a different story. The sunlit surface, where forests grow and oceans shimmer, represents only a small fraction of Earth's living space. Sunlight penetrates the atmosphere and touches the land, then slips into the sea for a short distance before fading away. Beyond that narrow zone, darkness takes over completely. Most of the planet's volume exists without direct light, stretching downward through kilometers of water and rock into realms that never see day. This means that the world humans evolved in is not typical of Earth as a whole. It is a specialized environment, perched at the interface between air and sea, light and shadow. Humans are surface specialists, shaped by sunlight, gravity, and rapid change. Our senses, behaviors, and technologies all assume visibility. We expect edges to be defined, distances to be clear, and time to be marked by light. Below us, Earth operates differently. Most of its habitable space lies in darkness, under pressure, at low temperatures, and at a pace far slower than human life. These regions are not marginal or empty. They are vast, continuous, and ancient. They hold ecosystems that have persisted for millions of years without ever experiencing a sunrise. Recognizing this shifts the balance of perspective. What we often call extreme environments are, in fact, the dominant ones. Darkness is not an anomaly to be explained away. It is the default condition of the planet. Light is the exception, a temporary state that exists only where distance from the sun allows it. Life reflects this reality. While surface ecosystems feel abundant and dynamic, they occupy a narrow band of conditions. Beneath them, life adapts to constancy, scarcity, and absence. The strategies explored throughout this journey, slow metabolism, rare encounters, bioluminescence, patience, are not niche solutions. They are responses to the most common conditions Earth offers. Humans, by contrast, remain tightly bound to light. We build our schedules around it. We measure time by it. We design our environments to maximize it. When light disappears, we bring artificial replacements, bright and intrusive, because our bodies and minds expect illumination. Without it, orientation falters. This dependence can make the deep ocean feel alien, but the alienness belongs more to us than to the planet. From Earth's perspective, surface life is unusual. It lives fast, burns energy quickly, and responds dramatically to change. Deep life lives slow, conserves energy, and persists through stability. Both are valid expressions of biology, but one occupies far more space than the other. This realization carries a humbling weight. Humans often imagine themselves as central, as representatives of life's norms. Yet most of Earth's living systems operate beyond our experience, indifferent to our presence. The planet does not organize itself around our needs or perceptions. It simply allows many forms of life to exist where conditions permit. Darkness, then, is not something to be conquered or illuminated away. It is something to be understood. It holds most of Earth's history, most of its volume, and much of its living complexity. The deep ocean reminds us that familiarity is not a measure of importance. As the narrative continues, this perspective gently reframes everything that came before. The creatures of permanent darkness are not oddities living at the edge of possibility. They are inhabitants of Earth's primary state. Humans live in a bright margin, adapted to a rare condition that feels normal only because it surrounds us. In accepting this, a quiet humility settles in. Earth is larger than our experience of it. Life is broader than our definitions. Darkness is not the absence of life or meaning. It is the backdrop against which most of the planet quietly unfolds, steady and enduring, long before and long after the light we know fades away. As darkness settles into its role as Earth's default condition, another quiet truth emerges. Life in the deep ocean has never depended on being seen. These ecosystems formed long before eyes capable of studying them ever existed, and they continue to function without recognition, measurement, or record. For hundreds of millions of years, deep-sea life unfolded without interruption. Long before humans walked upright or imagined the ocean as a place to explore, these communities were already established. Creatures fed, reproduced, and died in total darkness, guided only by the slow rules of pressure, chemistry, and time. Entire lineages rose and persisted while continents shifted above them, unnoticed and unaffected. There was no audience for this world, no witness to mark milestones or name discoveries. Life did not wait to be catalogued. It simply continued. The deep ocean never needed observation to justify its existence, and it never adapted for visibility. Its systems developed inwardly, shaped by function rather than display. When humans finally arrived with lights and cameras, the encounter was brief and asymmetrical. We looked. The deep did not look back. Creatures drifted through artificial beams without recognition, reacting only to the immediate physical changes of light, vibration, or pressure. There was no sense of being discovered, no awareness of novelty. The deep ocean treated observation as another passing disturbance, no more meaningful than a slow current or falling debris. This indifference is not hostility, it is independence. Deep sea life does not orient itself toward surface activity. It does not rely on surface rhythms, surface structures, or surface presence. Many organisms here have no sensory pathway that could even register the existence of a sunlit world above. For them, Earth ends where darkness begins. Even catastrophic changes at the surface register only indirectly and slowly. Food supply may thin, chemical balances may shift. Yet the deep responds without reference to cause, adjusting to conditions as they arrive. There is no awareness of forests burning, ice melting, or cities rising. There is only the immediate environment, interpreted through senses shaped entirely by darkness. This makes deep sea ecosystems remarkably self contained. They form a parallel continuity that does not require connection to human history or concern. While surface life changes rapidly under human influence, the deep continues at its own pace, absorbing consequences without acknowledgement of origin. It does not resist, it does not adapt quickly, it endures. Independence runs through every level of this world. Individuals survive alone, species persist without coordination, ecosystems operate without oversight. There is no central structure, no keystone authority, no organizing intelligence. Stability arises from simplicity and patience rather than control. This independence also means continuity beyond humanity. The deep ocean existed before us, and it will persist after us. Even if surface conditions change dramatically, some portion of this dark world will remain, carrying forward lineages adapted to scarcity and stillness. Its future does not hinge on our presence, just as its past did not anticipate it. In this way, the deep ocean offers a rare perspective on life itself. It demonstrates that existence does not require validation. Life does not need to be observed, named, or understood to continue. It does not seek meaning beyond survival. It does not perform for an audience. As the story drifts deeper into this realization, the quiet becomes instructive. The deep ocean reminds us that Earth is not centered on human awareness. We are visitors to a planet whose largest living systems operate without regard for our attention. This does not diminish the value of exploration or understanding. Instead, it reframes it. Observation becomes a privilege rather than a right. Knowledge becomes something earned through patience rather than assumed through presence. The deep ocean remains what it has always been: steady, dark, and alive. Its creatures continue their lives without interruption, indifferent to whether they are seen or forgotten. In that independence lies a profound truth. Life does not exist for us. It exists for itself, quietly thriving in a world that never needed an observer to be complete. As independence settles into the rhythm of the deep, another boundary quietly reveals itself. Adaptation, so powerful in shaping life here, also sets limits. The same changes that allow survival in permanent darkness make a return to the light nearly impossible. Evolution opens doors, but it also closes them. Deep sea life is shaped by extreme specialization. Bodies adjust to pressure that would crush surface organisms. Metabolism slow to match scarce energy. Sensory systems turn inward, listening to vibration and chemistry instead of light. Over time, these changes do more than improve survival. They redefine what survival means. Returning to the sunlit world would require undoing these adaptations. Pressure adapted bodies lack the structures needed to function in lower pressure environments. Tissues built to compress evenly lose stability when that force disappears. Internal chemistry tuned for cold and darkness struggles under warmth and light. What works perfectly in the deep becomes a liability above. Vision provides a clear example. Many deep sea animals have reduced eyes or none at all. Others possess eyes designed to detect faint glows rather than form detailed images. In sunlight, these systems would be overwhelmed or useless. Rebuilding functional surface vision would require complex changes across many generations, changes that offer no advantage in darkness and therefore never begin. Energy systems are equally locked in. Low metabolism supports long survival without food, but it limits speed, growth, and responsiveness. Surface life demands quick reactions and frequent feeding. A deep sea body cannot suddenly accelerate its chemistry without losing the efficiency that keeps it alive. The trade off favors endurance over flexibility. Skeletons and muscles follow the same pattern. Reduced structure works well where water supports weight and movement is slow. In shallow environments, where gravity and currents behave differently, these bodies would struggle to maintain shape or control motion. Adding strength would increase energy demands beyond what deep adapted systems can support. This is how specialization becomes a one-way path. Each adaptation solves a problem, but also removes alternatives. Evolution does not plan ahead or preserve unused options. It selects what works now. Over long spans of time, this process narrows the range of environments a species can tolerate, even as it perfects survival within one. Trade-offs accumulate quietly. Efficiency replaces versatility. Stability replaces speed. Sensitivity replaces perception. None of these changes are reversible without cost. And in the deep ocean, cost is everything. There is no spare energy for experimentation. Any trait that does not immediately support survival is trimmed away. As a result, deep sea life becomes deeply committed to its environment. It does not migrate upward or explore brighter waters. The path back is blocked, not by barriers, but by biology itself. Evolution has locked these organisms into a narrow but stable niche. This does not represent failure or limitation in a negative sense. It represents commitment. Life here does not seek expansion, it seeks persistence. Constraints are accepted rather than challenged. Survival is achieved within known boundaries rather than by testing new ones. Even when environmental changes occur, deep sea life adapts slowly and within limits. It may adjust feeding strategies, reproduction timing, or behavior, but its fundamental design remains anchored to darkness, pressure, and scarcity. These conditions define not just where life exists, but how it exists. The surface world often celebrates adaptability as freedom, the ability to move, change, and explore. The deep ocean reveals another model: survival through constraint, success through specialization, continuity through acceptance of limits. As the narrative drifts onward, this understanding settles gently. The deep ocean is not a stepping stone to other environments, it is a destination. Its inhabitants are not waiting to return to the light. They are perfectly matched to a world without it. Life here thrives not by keeping options open, but by closing them carefully. Evolution shapes forms that work under specific conditions and then holds them there. In doing so, it creates ecosystems that endure precisely because they do not change direction. In the permanent darkness, adaptation finds its balance. It offers survival, but only within the boundaries it creates. And within those boundaries, life continues quietly, steady and sufficient, bound not by limitation alone, but by the very adaptations that made existence possible in the first place. As adaptation reaches its limits and life settles into forms that cannot easily change, a wide silence remains around our understanding. Even after centuries of ocean study, the deep still holds more unknowns than answers. What we have seen is only a thin sampling of a world that resists observation by its very nature. Vast regions of the deep ocean remain unexplored. Trenches descend farther than most machines can safely reach. Plains stretch for thousands of kilometers with no fixed landmarks to guide repeated visits. Mountain ranges rise from the seafloor, their slopes and valleys never crossed by cameras or sensors. Many of these places are not hidden by secrecy, but by scale. The deep is simply too large to be surveyed in any complete way. Exploration happens in narrow paths. A submersible descends along a single route. A robotic vehicle follows a planned transect. What lies just beyond the beam of light remains unseen. When the mission ends, the darkness closes again, unchanged. Each expedition adds knowledge, but it also highlights how much remains untouched. Because of this, many species have never been observed alive. Some are known only from fragments brought up by nets, damaged by pressure changes during ascent. Others are identified through genetic traces found in water samples, evidence of presence without a face or form. These organisms live entire lives without ever being witnessed, their behaviors inferred rather than recorded. Even for species that have been seen, understanding remains partial. A brief encounter does not reveal how an animal feeds over years, how it chooses mates, how it responds to rare changes, or how it interacts with others of its kind. A few minutes of footage cannot capture a lifetime shaped by patience and scarcity. Unknown behaviors fill these gaps. Migration patterns, if they exist, unfold too slowly to track. Reproductive events may happen once in many years, easily missed by short visits. Social interactions, already rare, may occur outside the narrow windows of observation. The deep ocean does not offer repeated performances. It offers fragments. Much of what scientists understand comes from indirect evidence. Body structure hints at feeding style. Chemical signatures suggest diet. Distribution patterns imply movement. These methods are careful and grounded, yet they remain interpretations rather than direct experience. The deep demands inference where certainty is impossible. The limits of current science are not failures of effort, they are reflections of environment. Instruments must withstand immense pressure. Batteries limit time. Communication delays slow response. Even the simple act of lighting a scene alters behavior. Observation itself becomes a form of disturbance. Long-term monitoring is especially difficult. Leaving equipment in the deep for extended periods risks loss or damage. Recovering it requires precise navigation in featureless terrain. As a result, continuous records are rare. Most data arrives as snapshots separated by long gaps. Despite these challenges, knowledge continues to grow. Each descent refines maps. Each sample clarifies chemistry. Each image expands the catalog of forms life can take. Progress is steady, but it follows the pace of the environment it studies. Slow, deliberate, and incomplete. This incompleteness carries an important lesson. The deep ocean is not a puzzle waiting to be solved. It is a living system that will always exceed our ability to fully describe it. Unknowns are not temporary obstacles. They are permanent features of studying a world this large and this remote. As the narrative moves forward, this awareness softens expectations. Understanding does not require total knowledge. Respect does not require full visibility. The deep can remain partially unknown and still be meaningful. What we still do not know does not diminish what we have learned. Instead, it preserves a sense of scale. It reminds us that Earth continues to operate beyond the edges of our perception, holding processes and lives that unfold without record. In the darkness below, countless interactions continue without witness. Species move, feed, reproduce, and disappear without ever entering human awareness. Science reaches as far as it can, then stops, not because curiosity ends, but because the world itself extends farther still. The deep ocean remains a place where knowledge grows alongside mystery, and where what is unseen is not a gap to be feared, but a quiet reminder of how much life continues beyond the light of understanding. As the unknown stretches outward beyond the reach of instruments and memory, a final realization takes shape. Most of Earth's life unfolds beyond human experience. What we know intimately, forests, fields, coral reefs, coastlines, represents only a narrow slice of the planet's living reality. The majority exists elsewhere, quietly continuing in conditions that humans rarely encounter and cannot inhabit. Most animals live outside the world of light, sound, and pace that defines human life. They occupy depths where pressure replaces air, where darkness replaces color, and where time stretches far beyond the urgency of surface existence. These organisms do not gather in places we visit easily. They do not respond to seasons we recognize. Their lives are shaped by stability rather than change, by scarcity rather than abundance. Darkness emerges as the dominant environment on Earth. It fills the oceans beyond the reach of sunlight and extends into the planet's interior through caves, sediments, and fractures. This darkness is not empty. It is structured, layered, and alive. Within it, ecosystems function with quiet efficiency, recycling matter, conserving energy, and persisting across immense spans of time. In this context, surface life becomes the exception rather than the rule. The bright world humans inhabit is dynamic and expressive, but it is also narrow and fragile. It exists within a thin boundary where light, temperature, and chemistry align just enough to support rapid growth and frequent change. This narrow band feels vast to us because it is all we know. Below it, Earth tells a different story. Life moves slowly. Encounters are rare. Bodies are shaped by patience. Evolution favors endurance over speed. The absence of light does not signal absence of life. It signals a different mode of living, one that does not announce itself through motion or sound. Recognizing this hidden majority reframes Earth itself. The planet is not primarily a place of forests and skies. It is a world of depth, pressure, and shadow. The surface is a skin, thin and active, while beneath it lies the bulk of Earth's living space, steady and enduring. This reframing challenges intuition. Humans tend to measure importance by visibility and familiarity. What we see often feels central. What we cannot access feels marginal. Yet Earth operates according to scale, not perception. The largest habitats, the longest lasting ecosystems, and the most stable conditions exist where humans cannot easily go. Life here does not conform to narratives of struggle or conquest. It does not rush or compete loudly. It persists. Its success is measured not in expansion, but in continuity. While surface ecosystems rise and fall quickly, the deep holds memory, carrying lineages forward through changes that reshape everything above. Understanding this shifts the role of humanity within the broader story of life. We are not representatives of Earth's typical conditions. We are specialists, adapted to a rare and fleeting zone. Our experience, while rich and complex, is not universal. It is contextual. This does not diminish the surface world. It places it within a larger frame. Forests, oceans, and skies remain extraordinary, but they are no longer the whole picture. They are part of a layered planet where different rules apply at different depths. As the narrative reaches this point, the deep ocean stands not as a distant curiosity, but as a reminder. Earth's life is not arranged for observation. It does not organize itself around what humans can see or understand. Most of it unfolds quietly, beyond our awareness, in conditions that feel unfamiliar but are entirely normal for the planet. The hidden majority of Earth's life continues its long, patient existence. Darkness remains its home, pressure remains its constant companion, time remains abundant. And within that steady world, life thrives, not despite the absence of light, but within it. This reframing settles gently, not as a conclusion, but as a perspective. Earth is larger than the surface, life is broader than visibility, and the world we know is only one layer of a planet whose true character lies mostly in the dark. As the journey reaches its natural resting place, the deep ocean settles back into stillness. Permanent darkness, once imagined as empty or hostile, reveals itself as a cradle of life, not a temporary refuge, not a place waiting for light to return, but a world that has supported living systems for immense stretches of time, quietly and reliably. In this darkness, life learned to exist without familiarity. It released the need for color, for speed, for constant contact. It learned to listen instead of look, to wait instead of rush, to endure instead of expand. Bodies shaped themselves around scarcity and patience, finding balance in conditions that feel foreign only because they are not ours. Survival here does not depend on resemblance to the surface world. It does not borrow comfort from what humans recognize as normal. Instead, it builds its own logic, one grounded in pressure, chemistry, and long continuity. Life does not struggle against darkness, it settles into it, allowing absence to become structure. This world below continues without pause. While the surface changes rapidly, shaped by seasons, storms, and human movement, the deep maintains its quiet rhythm. Creatures drift, settle, feed, and reproduce without awareness of events above. Generations pass without spectacle. Time stretches gently, unbroken by urgency. There is no grand display of survival here, no dramatic turning points. Life persists through consistency rather than triumph. Its success is measured in duration rather than dominance. In this way, the deep ocean holds a form of stability that the surface rarely achieves. As this story draws to a close, the deep does not offer resolution in the way human narratives often do. It offers continuity. The darkness does not lift. The creatures do not emerge into light. They remain where they are, shaped by conditions that have always existed and will continue long after observation ends. This understanding reframes Earth itself. The planet is not defined primarily by what is visible, it is defined by what endures. Beneath forests, cities, and waves lies a living system that does not announce itself, yet occupies most of the planet's space and time. Earth is layered, complex, and far stranger than it appears from the surface. What feels alien to us is, in fact, deeply natural to the planet. Darkness is not a void waiting to be filled. It is a setting in which life found another way to be. The deep ocean reminds us that existence does not require familiarity, comfort, or recognition. It requires only the ability to persist within given conditions. As listeners drift away from this quiet exploration, the deep continues unchanged. It does not respond to attention or reflection. It simply remains, carrying forward countless lives that unfold beyond sight and sound. Earth turns. The surface glows briefly beneath the sun, and below it all, in permanent darkness, life continues its slow, steady story, calm, resilient, and endlessly patient.